This is the fourth video of the RAG series. In today's video, we are going to discuss about chunking and different chunking strategies. In a RAG system, the documents are embedded and saved in a vector database. Then, from this vector database, data is retrieved and passed to the LLM. Usually, documents like PDFs, docs are long and unstructured. So here the problem is large language models cannot embed or retrieve very long documents effectively. To solve this, documents must be preprocessed and split into smaller chunks before embedding. So chunking is an important step in RAG. So what is chunking? Chunking is the process of breaking large documents into smaller, meaningful text segments. Each chunk is embedded separately and stored in the vector database. Chunking is very important in most real-world RAG systems, especially when working with large or complex documents. It helps the system retrieve only the most relevant parts of the data. So why chunking is needed? Embedding models have token limits. One of my previous videos, I mentioned about vector embeddings. Embedding models have fixed token limits, so entire long documents cannot be vectorized as a single units. Chunking splits content into embeddable pieces that enables storage and similarity search in vector database. Basically, smaller chunks improve retrieval accuracy. Context management. Retrieved chunks should fit within the LLM's context limit and still contain enough information to produce clear and correct answers. Chunking with overlap preserves important context and chunk boundaries. This prevents the loss in the middle problem, where the model ignores important details that appear in the middle of the provided context. Efficiency and scalability. Processing entire documents for every query increases computation and storage cost. Chunking breaks documents into smaller parts, making indexing faster and retrieval more efficient. It also reduces hallucination by grounding the model's answers in short, clear, and factual pieces of information. This is how chunking works. You can see a long text here. After chunking, it becomes chunk 1, chunk 2, and chunk 3. Each chunk is embedded separately and stored in the vector database. For every chunk, the vector database stores three main things: embedding, text content, metadata. Embedding is the numerical representation of the chunk. It is used for similarity search. Text content, the actual chunk text. It is used to send context to the LLM after retrieval. Metadata, information about the chunk. It helps to trace and filter results. Common metadata are like document name, page number, section title, etc. A document with 100 chunks result in 100 vector entries. Each chunk is independent and searchable. Each chunk is stored as a separate vector with its own text and metadata. Chunk overlap. Chunk overlap means repeating a small part of text between consecutive chunks so that important context is not lost when a document is split. Here you can see an example without overlap. If a query asks what are transformers used for, chunk 1 may not contain the usage information clearly. If we add the overlap, the chunks will look like this. Now the second chunk includes context from the first. Retrieval becomes more accurate. When a document is split into chunks, important meanings may span across chunks boundaries. A sentence or idea can get cut in the middle. Retrieval may miss relevant context. That's why we need chunk overlap. Sentence boundaries. Sentence boundaries refer to the start and end points of a complete sentence in a text. Sentence boundaries are needed in RAG because they help preserve meaning and context when documents are split into chunks. In simple terms, they define where one sentence ends and the next sentence begins. If text is cut in the middle of a sentence, the chunk may lose important information, which leads to poor embedding and inaccurate retrieval. When chunking the data, we also need to consider chunk size. If it is too small, it loses context, retrieval becomes noisy, LLM may get incomplete information. For large chunks, it may dilute relevance, embeddings becomes less precise, fewer chunks fit into the LLM context window. Chunking strategies. Chunking strategies in Retrieval-Augmented Generation vary from simple rule-based splits to advanced semantic methods. Selecting the right approach depends on document type, query complexity, and model context limits. Here I am discussing 4 different chunking strategies. First one is fixed size chunking. This splits text into uniform segments by characters, words, or tokens, often with 10 to 20% overlap to retain boundary context. It prioritizes speed and simplicity, but risks cutting mid-sentences and diluting semantics. This chunking is best for quick prototyping or uniform short text like emails. These are some characteristics of fixed size chunking. It uses fixed number of characters or tokens. It does not respect sentence boundaries. It is simple and fast. It may split sentences in the middle. You can use this method when speed is more important than precision. This is a Python example for fixed size chunking. I had shared this code. You can find the link in the description box. Recursive chunking. Instead of cutting text at a random character count, recursive chunking uses a prioritized list of separators like paragraphs, new lines, and spaces. The system first tries to split the text into large pieces using the highest priority separator, such as double new lines. Then it checks if each new piece is small enough to fit within your limit. Then it breaks down further. If a piece is still too large, the system moves to the next separator on the list, like a single new line, and then splits that specific piece again. Then repeat this process. This process continues down the list through the sentences, then words, and finally individual characters if absolutely necessary. Once every piece is below the size limit, the process stops. Recursive chunking preserves semantic boundaries, avoids breaking sentences when possible, improves retrieval accuracy. You can use recursive chunking when you use long documents, PDFs, reports, research papers, or production RAG systems. This is a Python example that uses recursive chunking. Semantic chunking. Semantic chunking is a way to break up long documents by grouping sentences together only if they talk about the same thing. Instead of cutting text at a fixed number of words or characters, it uses AI to understand the actual meaning of each sentences. The system first breaks the entire document into individual sentences. Then it turns these sentences into numerical embedding, which means vectors, using an AI model. Then it calculates how similar the meaning of one sentence is to the next one in line. In the next step, when the similarity between two sentences drops significantly, it assumes the topic has changed and makes a cut there. In the final step, it creates groups. It groups related sentences into one chunk until it hits the next topic shift. Semantic chunking uses embedding to detect topic shifts. No fixed chunk size. It adapts naturally to document structure. It needs more computation than simple chunking. Some of the trade-offs of semantic chunkings are slower and costlier. It requires running an AI model for every sentence just to decide where to cut, making it slower and more expensive than simple splitting, and also inconsistent sizes. Some chunks might be very long and others very short, which can sometimes be tricky for certain AI models to handle. Document structure chunking. It leverages inherent formats, headings in Markdown or HTML, functions in code, or sections in PDFs. Maintains logical units aligned with content organization. It is effective for structured files like code bases or manuals. It uses headings and sections as boundaries. It respects document hierarchy. It produces larger but coherent chunks. It often combined with recursive or sentence-based chunking. We can use this chunking if we are using PDFs and Word documents or technical manuals, API documentation, etc. In today's video, we covered chunking and different chunking strategies. I had shared the Python code for each chunking strategy. You can find the link in the description box. So that's all about today's video. If you found this helpful, please consider to subscribe the channel and like the video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye.